Welcome to the Black Tower. I'm the Sorcerer Interview. Hey, oh, motherfucking days on the day of fucking Saturn, I get to introduce each and every single one of you to the most coolest motherfucking sorcerer uh, that I recently befriended, Mr. D.H. Thorne. What's up,
What's up,
Thorne?
brother? How you doing, man? How you been doing?
Dude, doing it. Normally I do this coffee with the sorcerer. Today it's water or Gatorade, so
I got my soda actually.
damn, what a cup, man. I need something like that to put my coffee in. So the first thing in the morning, I'm sitting there like with both hands, like a little
Dude,
kid in a soup bowl.
this is one of those giant. You'd have like what, a double, a triple, a grande, a extra grande.
No, I just make regular coffee, but it's black silk. I endorse black silk by Folgers. So, Folgers, if you're listening, feel free to advertise for me.
Oh snap! Yeah, right.
Oh, snap. All right, so let's get away from the coffee and all this. Okay, so, brother, I know that you've been at this as long as I have. And every practitioner has intermittent modes where they just, tune out the world of magic and, they have to hit a form of normalcy. They find they rebalance, recenter. Uh, However, I found you due to your blog. Please, oh, please tell us about your blog.
Well, the blog started kind of at the same time that I got back into doing stuff with magic and the occult, demons, and various things. For a number of years, I had, like you said, switched it all off. I had, if you read my blog, I spell out what happened as a kid. I had dabbled in the wrong kind of things. I think I pissed off some things. I did things the wrong way. We'll just put it like that. And I had attracted the attention of things that, let's just say they gave me problems. And I like to think of them as the shadow people talk about when they're talking about the supernatural, things like that. But also demons and other spirits were interacting with me. And for years, they were teaching me and driving me insane. We'll just put it that way. There was definitely an element of adversarial teaching going on, you could say, and I felt a little victimized by some of it because I didn't know what I was doing. But I rose up, if you read my blog, to kind of take over and become. Uh, I don't know how you'd say it. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say that I was in command of it.
You had to become your own master.
I had to become my own master. But what ended up happening was, for whatever reason, I had lost interest in it. I had felt like what I was doing was either wrong or some kind of a dishonest thing, because when I was doing this, I had a cult going. I had people that were, doing everything I told them to do. And it got to the point where sometimes I was like, how much of this is really a good thing? How much of this is benefiting me? How much of this is benefiting anybody? And I don't want to make it sound like an altruistic thing. I was an asshole, like I was doing bad things to people. Um, and the shadow beings that I was dealing with, the ones that I was dealing with are vampiric in nature. They like to feed off fear. They like to feed off the energy of the people that they're working with. And if they get someone like me who is aware of them and is willing to work with them, they'll work through them sometimes to scare as many people as they can, to drain them, to make cults, to make these groups and do these things. I could go into hours and hours of what I think they are, the ones that I experience, what they are, what they want. And that is kind of the purpose of my blog, is to get into that eventually. And to release some manuscript on the subject at some point that's a little bit more definitive than what other people have done. So I don't want to give too much away, but I will say that in my experiences with them, I found that they can be dangerous to work with if you don't come at them with the right perspective. Because they're going to work through you. They're like the junk energy that people often dismiss when they start a ritual. When someone banishes or cleanses or does a smudging or something like that, a lot of the times that chaotic energy that they're getting rid of is the energy that they're made of, or that they feed on, or that whatever. And if that isn't properly harnessed, like when we do magic in an intelligent way, when we're doing ritual and we're doing spell work, we're organizing this chaos to do something useful, to do something good. If it's allowed to do what it wants to do, in the sense that if you just kind of dabble in it and you just say, show me something, scare me, if you play Bloody Mary in the mirror and you really believe it enough, and not say that Bloody Mary does anything, but the principle is the same. If you're like, scare me, it's going to scare you.
It's a trance state.
It's going to do something to you. Yeah, it's a trance state. Yeah, Bloody Mary is a kind of scrying, really. If you ever have success with it, it's just scrying. But but I'll get into that later. So I started my blog because after these experiences, and it's easier to read it than it is to explain it, because when I try to explain it, I'm trying to draw in 10 years, 15 years of bad experiences, good experiences, to try to explain to you why I stopped. But to put it succinctly, I decided that it wasn't real. Okay. And I think that was a defense mechanism to kind of break the tie that I had with this being that was working through me. And it was a defense mechanism to kind of grow up, because I was relying on magic too much to deal with problems I had in life in a way where I wasn't growing. It was kind of like, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll, never go hungry. Well, they were giving me fish all the time. I didn't have to grow. I was able to do a spell, and the people that were bothering me would leave me alone. I was able to do this and that, and things would get solved, and I didn't grow. So I had met my wife, and around that time, I was losing interest in these things. And I just like switched it off completely for about, I'm going to say 10, 11 years, maybe more. Didn't get involved in magic in any way, shape, or form after that. And so I pretty much slept through the entire internet awakening of magic, where everything is now accessible online. I never had that. I had to reason things out. I had to be intuitive. I had to scry for information. I couldn't afford books really that I wanted. And what are you going to find at the local bookstore? You're not going to find the deep wealth of knowledge that we have today. You're going to, what are you going to find? You're not going to find these experts the way we have today. And so about, I guess, 2 months ago, which is right about when you and I started talking, I had gotten interested in Lovecraftian magic again, because I felt a strong call towards it. Like something was pulling me. Like, just give this a try. Just look into it, And of course, because it's Lovecraftian, you have all of these, whatchamacallit, everyone believes it's fake. Everyone believes that these beings are fictional beings and blah, 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 blah. And running through my head over and over again was the simple fact that a lot of the things that we work with, you could make similar arguments for, because there's no conclusive origin for all of these things, you could say. Like the Goetic demons, there's a lot of people who will say that could have been made up. I mean, the Lesser Key of Solomon, where did that really come from? Was that really the Lesser Key of Solomon, or was that just something that some people, I don't want to say made up, but, elaborated on? Did H.P. Lovecraft actually get in contact with other entities without realizing it? Was he having dreams of entities that were real entities that were trying to get his attention? And these kinds of things were racing through my head. And what is interesting to me was I was such a skeptic at the time that the fact that I was having these thoughts was like, what? Like, this didn't make sense. I didn't believe in magic at all when I started doing this. When I started talking to you again, I was just starting to believe it again. And to go that much of a 180, to me by itself is proof of something. You don't go, it's one thing to say you go 180 and become a skeptic, but for a skeptic to go 180 and become spiritual again, that's very unusual. And part of that also could be that I've never lost touch with mystical thinking. I've always been into Zen and Buddhism and Taoism, things like that. And that informs a lot of what I do, because I am a non-dualist. I do believe that all are one. We're all one thing without separation, and what we see are, saying that it's illusory is saying too much, but we are all we're all waves that don't realize we're the ocean. You know what I mean? Yeah. We think of each other as separate waves, but there's no separation. We're all the ocean. We're different expressions of the same ocean. And when I got back into magic, that was kind of fueling my understanding of things, because I realized, what is magic if not just another art form, if not just another way to express yourself through your actions and through your beliefs, like painting a picture. Obviously people who do a lot of artwork will tell you, like, if you paint, and if they do magic as well, you can do magic through painting. I mean, there's several people who do that. They'll paint a painting, and there's power in that. So I was kind of playing these mental gymnastics to give me an excuse to get back into magic, because that's what I wanted to do. And in Zen, in these Eastern philosophies, part of the source of it, part of the goal of it, is to be true to yourself. It's actually very Luciferian in nature. It's to know yourself and be true to yourself, not deny yourself. A lot of people will do something good, and they'll act like they're a good person, but in reality, they're just really being selfish, and they're just putting a coat of paint over it to say, I'm a good person. Like if you help a little old lady across the street, why are you really doing that? Do you really care about that old lady, or is it really so that you feel good about that you helped a little old lady, or
I
that you
think it's
present?
sympathetic. I think it's sympathetic because of, like, say for example, like having to come up where I need a surgery, so I'm on crutches, right? So I see somebody that's in physical health like that. It is a reaction from an experience I've had. It's not necessarily I'm a great guy.
Right, but it does make you feel good, right? It does give you a good feeling. It relieves any sense of guilt you might have, or, if you have empathy. I'm not saying you don't have empathy when you have this. What I'm saying is people don't usually accept that what they're doing has a nugget of selfish reason behind it. And people will ignore that completely. They won't embrace the fact that we all do things that we would like to call selfless, that we would like to say, you know, but if you're a non-dualist, you recognize that that little old lady trying to cross the street is also you. So, like, when you're saying, like, oh, I'm on crutches and it makes me think of how much that must suck. Well, in a way, you may not realize it, but in my mind, you're seeing yourself on crutches. You realize that that's you, and so you are selfishly helping yourself. So
Yep.
there's different ways you can approach it, but it ends up being a kind of, you know, I don't want to play too many mind games with this, but or too many sophistic, arguments with it. But if you look at it deeply enough, it's very hard for anyone to truly claim a selfless act. And the way you know that is the minute they claim it's a selfless act, why are they trying to prove it's selfless?
I want to
Why
throw
is
a thought out there. Okay, so all of the universe uh, seeks uh, seeks to express itself.
okay?
Okay, and so in this universe of expression, we see individualistic aspects of self and others. Now, this comes full circle with your concept of the all. When you're talking about selfless and selfish are the same.
Yep,
So it's inherent in our nature.
correct. It's inherent in our nature to interact. It's inherent in our nature because that's the game. You
Yeah.
know, it's I tell people sometimes, think of it like a Rorschach ink blot that's looking at itself.
Yeah.
You're like a Rorschach ink blot looking at yourself, finding the patterns in yourself that you want to identify with and see as tangible. But it's all really you. It's all really the same thing. And so you'll pick out things in other people even that you identify with, and those become more real to you. You and I get along very well because we have a lot of similarities. I look at you, I see someone with a similar, at least vibration, if not similar ideas.
Yeah.
And so we get along. But then there's people I'm never going to get along with. How can that be if we're all one? Well, it's the same thing with a Rorschach ink blot. It's all one image, but it can have light spots and dark spots, and they don't always mix. But they're still connected. They're still part of each other. So yes, when you're helping yourself, you're helping someone else, and when you're helping someone else, you're helping yourself. And one thing I will say is it's really easy to sum these things up with clever koans and sayings, but to really communicate it and understand it is a leap of intuitive logic that can happen instantly or can take a lifetime of seeking. So what I try to do, even in my own magical workings, when I'm doing my blog, is I try to put little nuggets of that wherever I can, because I'm hoping that people will make that intuitive leap, because all I can kind of do is bring you closer to what I understand and hope that you bridge the gap to understanding with your own intellect. Because it's, they say Zen is a finger pointing at the moon, and I often say people get hung up looking at the finger. Look, there's a hangnail on it. They miss the moon entirely. So there's a lot to it, but
Yeah.
like I said, I don't like to get too hung up in that because there's greater people than I that have done lectures on Zen, non-dualism. Alan Watts, Eckhart Tolle, and some others. There's a lot of people, that have talked about this. And so I come from that perspective of taking those philosophies, Jungian psychology, stuff like that, and kind of squishing them together until it makes a ball that I can stick all my occult stuff into. You know what I mean? That works as the glue.
What I think is really cool is that you paint a picture with words, but it is up to the reader/viewer to discern what that picture of those words means to them. And therefore, it is once again the universe experiencing itself through another part of itself.
That goes back to that magical writing video that I did not too long ago, where I had made a statement which I thought was pretty good at the time, and I still do, that when you're writing something, you are taking something. I'm going to reach up here like it's out here, but we'll just say it's in the ether, it's in the astral, it might be in here, but you're reaching up here and you're taking a concept, such as the concept of fire, and you are taking it and you're passing it through your mind, and you're putting it on paper. And I'm going to show you that piece of paper, and that word fire is going to go into your mind, go into your brain, and in the astral realm of your understanding, fire appears. Yeah. So, are we looking at two separate fires or the same fire? Are we looking at
different perspectives?
Correct, exactly. Yeah. So you can all be looking at the same thing from different directions, different angles, and this communication we do is just a facet, just an avenue for that communication. And you can say, well, why would separate entities have to interact with each other at all? Well, that's the game. That's the fun part of the game. It's like your hand. Each one of your fingers probably thinks that they're a separate organism, but they can all touch the same truth at the same time and understand the same truth, but from a different perspective, and never realize that they're the same hand, which is the same arm and the same entity. In the same way, you and I can interact with the same truth and come to slightly different conclusions about it, and never realize that we are interacting with the same truth, and that we are, in the end, interacting with ourselves, like touching our own fingers together.
Well, speaking of sharing experiences or experiencing it from different perspectives, let's go back to something you were originally saying. You were talking about these shadow people in these interviews. Yep. I'm going to tie in a few things, which I'm keen for. So, the oracles of Zoroaster, which are wrote at the back of the Simon Necronomicon, stoop not down therefore into that darkly splendid world, wherein lies Hades wrapped in silver gloom and unintelligible images assault thee. Now then, let's take that. Let's jump to Aleister Crowley with his knocking 3 times on the surface and saying, I declare the shells have been banished unto their habitation. And then let's think Qliphoth for just a minute, which means the shells.
Yep.
And see how this is all going to tie in now. Mm-hmm. So these shadow beings, these things, I've experienced them in different weird ways, through dreaming, through awake, in like dark rooms where I'm standing there doing work. I was taught.
See something out of the corner of your eye, that kind of thing.
Yeah. See, and I was told 20 years ago, it was taught to me by a fellow practitioner that you're supposed to ignore those, that those are side effects, and that the more attention you give them, the stronger they become, aka poltergeist-type activities, stuff like that. But anyway, back to the bread and butter of what I'm actually trying to say without getting confused or twisted. Okay, so you have all these so-called shells. I love in high magic when they're like, create the body of light, create the body of light. I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, that's a great idea, but have you banished them when you've left the body of light? Because it's a shell. You know what's happening. It has been imprinted, charged, and given power by your own psyche.
Right. What did you do with that body of light? Where did it go? Right. And that's a very good point. And I think that I still have some divination to do, guys. This is why I haven't released my book yet. But
I'm not even going to go into why mine ain't been done yet.
But shadow beings, if we're going to talk about them honestly, they have approached me as, I'm going to say, my intuition says they're mostly egregoric. They're mostly creation. They're mostly created by other entities. That could be demons, that could be gods, whatever, and us. We're all kind of waves, right? Once an egregore is real, it's real. It's as real as you or I. It just doesn't have a physical body. It just doesn't necessarily have a physical form. It can even take those things eventually. It can become a god-like entity. There's a lot of demons that I work with that I'm convinced are egregores because of the way that they talk, the way that they're very much
Their mannerisms,
based,
everything.
very much different, right? Certain things like Lucifer, that's the voice in the back of my head all the time. He's always there. I'm always communicating with Lucifer on some level. Always there. I can't get him out of my head, okay? And I don't mind it. It's like the quiet little voice, like that they say that God is. That's one of the scariest moments I had of the occult was when I asked that voice, "Are you God?" And it said no. When I was still a Christian, you know what I mean? When I was still a Christian, I'm like, "Are you God?" It's like, no. I'm like, when you're a Christian, that makes you stop for me, Yeah. All right, but getting back to what I was saying, so a lot of these entities, like the shadow beings, I believe are egregoric in nature, servitor in nature, but mostly egregoric in that the ones that you see that are walking around as people or other entities, because I've seen shadow beings that were animals. I've seen them that were great hulking monstrosities. I've seen them, and some people will say, how do you know that's not just a god or a demon or something else? And I'll say, because, like you and I just agreed, you can tell when you're dealing with a higher entity, like one of the 9 Demotic Kings of the Goetia, or something like from the Necronomicon, or something like that, you can tell that the entity you're communing with is not just like random energy that's given a personality or a soul. It's been there, or it's an egregore that's been there for so long, it's so realized, it doesn't know that it's an egregore. So these shadow beings, with a few exceptions, will act like an intelligent egregore. They'll watch you from the corner and they'll do their thing. But like I said, my work is not done. I have some theories that I'm working with right now where I am going to be starting to intentionally communicate with them again to try to get to the bottom of it. I want to know if these are entities that people can work with intentionally and safely rather than not safely.
Yeah.
Are these vampiric beings that are just dangerous that should be, never dealt with, or are these things that you can actually have work for you and to have benefit you? Because they're everywhere. They are literally everywhere. I don't go from here to the store some nights without seeing a handful of them lurking, And at first I thought, oh, I must have schizophrenia, because that's one of the signs of schizophrenia. You see shadow things in the corner of your vision. Yes and no. This is a little different to me because the few times that I've experienced what I would consider a hallucination were very different. They were very different. I don't hear voices all the time. I don't feel paranoid presences all the time. And other people will see these same things I do at the same times that I do sometimes. And that is a unique thing about shadow people, is they tend to be able to physically manifest in ways that other entities maybe don't as often. I do, as you know, a lot of evocation with goetic demons and with other entities. And I can get physical manifestations to happen. I can get them in the smoke. I can get them in the fire of a big bonfire. I can get them to make noises. And I can see them with my third eye, my astral eye. But I rarely ever see them like in a corner of my vision doing things. I don't usually see a disembodied figure walking around. And I've never been attacked by one. And that's one of the differences also, is shadow beings will attack you. You will be asleep and they'll sit on your chest and suck the life out of your, that sleep paralysis thing. They will physically attack you if they become energetic enough. And one of the things you were saying that's very important, you brought up Crowley, and you brought up the Necronomicon, and you brought up all these other things about kind of how easy it is to get rid of them. In a very real sense, that's true, because in my experience, they are very reliant on your belief and your fear and your emotional content. They don't need it to exist. They don't need it to do what they do, but it empowers them, just like giving your energy into the incense of a ritual will give to a demon to have it evoke. But you don't have to do it on purpose. This is something, it's parasitic in nature. It's, it's made up of the chaotic junk energy around you. So, like, if you live in a home that's got a lot of domestic abuse, okay, a lot of child abuse, you're going to have these entities there a lot more. And I'm telling you that from personal experience.
No, I got
Growing up, I grew up in a household where, you know, certain people are still alive, so I won't name names, but there was a lot of problems growing up. Okay, and suffice to say, my household, I grew up with them not knowing what they were. They'd scare the daylights out of me. They'd interact with me. I'd have these experiences growing up with them, and the more I was afraid of them, the stronger they got. The more I tried to fight them, the stronger they got. By fight them, I mean fight them in an afraid kind of way. Like, they're going to get us, let's fight them. But if you are someone who, say, doesn't believe in them, or doesn't think they're very strong, or thinks that they're easily scared away with rapping on some wood, guess what? It's probably going to work, because you are not open to them. You're not open to their energy feeding attempts. You've already kind of got a shell around you. And I know this is true also because, full disclosure, when I first started getting back into the occult 2 months ago, I was feeling afraid of them again. I was already like, oh shit, that must mean they're real. I wasn't, hallucinating them when I saw them. And so I'd start to see them everywhere. In fact, a couple of my blog posts when I was doing when I was consecrating my wand to Nyarlathotep, and I had seen them again, and I had a vision of one playing with my wand in the middle of the night, as it's supposed to be out there collecting the rays of the moonlight and everything. And I'm like, well, this is weird, and when I get there, the wand is gone. And I'm like, what the fuck? It scared the shit out of me, because I'm like, they're real. They're fucking with me again. And so I finished out the nights of consecration, and I took that wand on the way home, and I started feeling them. It was almost like you could feel them closing in on you. You felt the cold tendrils going into your body. I mean, it was visceral. I was fucking like, holy crap, I'm scared right now. And which is silly, because someone who does a lot of occult and magical stuff, you probably don't get the willies like that very often, if at all.
Actually, I do.
You do? Okay.
You
Well, there's different kinds of willies. There's the good willies, like something's there, and then there's the bad willies, like something's going to get you. And it was a stupid, childish feeling, like something's going to get me. And I took that wand, right? And I never used wands. I was always into swords. I was always into staves. I never used a wand. And I made a declaration. I said, that I'm awake again, and I'm not playing around anymore, and I'm not going to be victimized by you ever again. You're going to work for me. And I started commanding them. I said, you are going to keep distance from my home. You are not going to enter my home anymore. You're not going to bother my family. You're not going to bother me, or else you're going to essentially get it. I don't remember my exact words, but I was very intimidating. And I was very sure of myself, because I realized, if they're real, then so is my power. So is what I'm doing is real. And I said to them, listen, I will work with you. If your interest is in being known to the world, and you want me to write a book for you, and you want me to create a system of path working that people can work with you safely, so that you can feed off of things, because they want something too. They're not just here to, like, oh, I'm gonna do tricks for you.
Attention, time, and energy.
Correct. And they want something too. Just like any other demonic force that you deal with, a lot of the times demons just want to do what they want to do through you, because, as above, so below. Well, you're that intermediary thing that allows them, like I often say, a demon has to expend a lot more energy than you do to pick up a cup off the table and put it to your lips and drink it. They can do that easily on the astral realm, just as easily as you can do it in the physical realm. But for them to do something in the real world, they have to work through agents. They have to work through subtle forces. They have to, encourage a butterfly to beat its wings a certain way to cause a hurricane that you want to have happen. Like, if you do a spell to cause a hurricane in Florida, well, that demon's going to have to go to Africa and get a butterfly to beat its wings just right. You know what I mean? It's not going to be able to just, boom, there it is. But these shadow beings, because they are working with these energies around you and through you on a very direct level, I find that their manifestations are much more physically potent. Maybe they're a little closer to the physical plane than these other entities are. I still have more divination to do, but they seem a lot more connected to the physical world. So if they're going to work with you, you're going to have to probably delve into things that maybe normal sorcery wouldn't include. You may have to be willing to make energetic sacrifices. You may have to actually be willing to feel that fear viscerally to give them form. You may have to be able to scare yourself into believing that they can do this.
Because you have to feed them in the way they need fed.
Right. And any I don't want to say negative emotion because I don't really see it as, hate can be a positive thing. It can be a cathartic thing. It can be a good thing. But they do feed on chaotic emotions. They do feed on things that are not properly dealt with. They do feed on these things, and they can, be attracted to certain people that are having these experiences. So this is where the challenge is for me, is to figure out a system, and I may not be able to do it, but this is where the challenge is for me, is finding a system where you can work with these beings safely, that will get you something that's not just, being scared all the time, and benefits them, because hell, wouldn't it be nice if we get these energies to cooperate with us on a regular level instead of, you know, something else? Maybe they can be elevated a little bit, because some of the ones that have come forward are just as real to me as a demon. Some of them, a handful that come forward, most of them are very animalistic, bestial, or just creepy, right? They're just a presence watching you, or they're touching you, or whatever. They're feeding off of you. A handful will step forward. They'll separate themselves from the rest, and they'll approach you, and they will want to talk to you. And like I said, I've talked to demons, and demons have never scared me. I've never been scared of a demon. Demons have always talked to me like I'm their best buddy. These things come forward, and they're and you're just like, oh, like you feel the shivers, you feel like this cold, and you realize, that's the reason this is because these are the things you normally are getting rid of when you're shedding your negative energies, when you're shedding all this that you hate about yourself. That's what they are. That's what they are. So when they're coming at you, they may even be from you. So like the really scariest ones I've interacted with, that might be the worst parts of me, that I have just shed, just let go of. Like, I was mad at my wife today and blah, 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 blah. These negative things coming at you in your face can be terrifying, because this is the stuff we don't want to be, It could be scarier than if a big burly guy's threatening you and ready to kill you, because you still feel like, well, you're you over there and I can hurt you. But when you're facing your own yuck, it's a little different. And I'm having a hard time putting it into words, but that's why I like to write better than talk.
Well, for the last 11 years, I've introduced a concept or a practice called feeding the shades. Now, what you're calling shadow people and all this, that, and the other, and many people call this and many people call that
Jinn and all these other things, yep.
I refer to them as the shades of self. And so, like, I'll take fingernails, toenails, anything that you cast off, even excess skin. I mean, stuff like this, hair, things like this, spit, blood, scabs, just anything like this. Things that normally you would put like in a Ngunga pot to empower it, which is a perfect tool, by the way, which we're not going to get into that today. I love a Ngunga, but I make a practice. I'll find a shadowy spot, where the sun doesn't touch, dried, cracked, and I'll push these items down in it, and I'll say, these I give to the shades of self. May it feed, strengthen, sustain, and nourish thee. Be thou strong within mine army and within myself, for I am that army. Mm-hmm. And I have no problem doing this ever since I've turned this into an actual practice, an actual physical, I would say once a week, but it just happens whenever it happens. Ever since I've turned it into an actual practice, though, a conscious practice, I've noticed that even if I see, the shadows recede or grow in my bedroom or, whatever, I don't feel that oppressiveness where they're trying, because they're sitting there and it's like they're waiting. Mm-hmm. If you've ever dealt with or raised or been around wolves are the exact same way these things are. As long as they recognize you as the pack leader, as the alpha, that's feeding them and making sure that they're fed, dude,
they'll do what you want.
They're right there waiting on you.
And I said that in my blog post about them, is they're kind of like a pack of coyotes or a gang of thugs, okay? Yep. It's not that they don't have any honor, it's that they are transactional. They're very much, what are you going to give me if I give this to you? Why should I be nice to you when I can suck this out of you? So when I was doing my cult activities, when I was running that thing, when I was not as, we'll say, enlightened as I am now, when I was abusing people and making them do what I wanted, these entities were giving me a lot of power. Okay, physical power, raw power, and it wasn't just because I was a 20-something-year-old man. I was terrifying when I was doing this. I mean, I was a bouncer, and I would sometimes use that when I'd have to deal with people. I'd throw them around like rag dolls, people bigger than me. This power was it wasn't like I was Superman. It wasn't like it gave me superpowers, but it gave me, we're gonna say, um, like a plus one. You know what I mean? Like a little bit of added juice in the tank and a little bit of extra intuition, and I could feel people's emotions better. That actually stayed with me. I never lost that. I'm actually very empathic still. But all these other things they gave me were given to me kind of like, if you keep running this cult and bringing us to feed on these people by scaring the crap out of them with these rituals you're doing and these things where you have to fight us and all this other stuff, not only are we going to make you look awesome because you're going to be the leader of this cult and everything else, but we're going to keep empowering you to have these strengths and all these other things. And we're going to keep sucking what we want out of these people. And at some point I said, I can't, maybe you care about the people too much. Maybe you realize that you're hurting people, I'm not going to say I was always an evil person. I'm not really saying I'm an evil person, but my ability to hurt people that I didn't care about was quite well developed. If I didn't care about you, I didn't care if you got run over by a car in front of me. It didn't matter. So, maybe I'm a little psychotic in that sense. That is like a hint of a psychopath.
No,
But I'm
you're
also
very honest.
I'm very honest, I guess, is the
There's very
difference.
few, like I say on my channel a lot of times, if you can't be honest with anybody, be honest with yourself,
Yeah.
because no matter what spirit you're talking about, whether you're talking about shades, whether you're talking about deities, whether you're talking about angels, demons, forces, powers, no matter what you're talking about, they are a perfect image
Hmm.
of what you are within you. And if
Hmm.
you're not at least honest and truthful with yourself, expect to have to command them by the many scary names of God that hold
Yep.
no water.
Correct. In fact, that's going in something like that is going into my manuscript. Is one of the secrets to magical power. People say, "To thine own self be true," like it's this great virtue. It's actually necessary. You cannot effectively work magic if you are not honest about what you're trying to accomplish, why you're trying to accomplish it, what you're willing to do to get it, and so on. If you're like, this is why I don't have a lot of respect for, and I say this in a nice way, but I don't have a lot of respect for the fluffy bunny, new age, yoga pants wearing magic type people, that everything's gods and angels and all that kind of bullshit, because they're really just putting a layer of paint over their shit. They're can I say that on your show?
Yeah, self-centered pieces of
They're
shit.
really
Gotcha.
just they are really just taking a layer of spackle and covering over the cracks of the shit that they are, just like any other holy person. And when I say holy person, I don't mean somebody who's arrived, because there are people that have arrived. They have cleansed. They are self-aware. They know why they're good and bad and evil, and you could call them a holy person. I'm talking about these people, the holy rollers, the ones that go to church and throw hundreds of dollars in the thing because they want to look good.
I'm
This
glad you used
applies.
that word, holy, because nowadays, every time you talk about left-hand path and all this other stuff, you're not allowed to use certain words, and I'm like, do you even know what holy means? Holy doesn't mean an angel singing and all this shit. Holy, we at our very core are sacred, holy beings, without mask, without and the flesh is a mask, the mind is a mask. Without any of that, we are holy beings. You
Well,
know.
I put it like this. As a non-dualist, right? I believe a god is just an expression of myself. Okay. And one way I put this was when I was a little kid and I was trying to struggle with, is there a God or not? I had this conversation where I said, if there isn't a God, let's pretend that there's nothing, that science is right, there's nothing, it's just me and you, and we're all separate, and this is all just, whatever. Then that means I'm God, because there's no God above me, right?
And
What
does
else
that
is,
make sense when you read all the other left-hand path material? There is no other God above me. It's like I was already there, dude. I
right,
was
I
a
was already
teenager
there.
with that
This
shit.
is, yeah, I didn't need to be taught that. I figured that out on my own.
Yeah.
And Zen and Buddhism and non-dualism kind of tells you the same thing, okay? But it comes at it from the other perspective, okay? I often say every path will get you there, even Christianity, because they all will teach you the same fucked up lesson in the end. If you follow Christianity all the way to its conclusion, Okay, you are either going to join with God and become holy as a person in heaven and blah 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 blah, and you've rejoined the one thing that is everything, or you're going to have a horrible, moment of disillusion where you pray for something you needed and it doesn't come true, and you don't hear God, and you go, there is no God. Now, at that moment, you can either become a depressed idiot and freaking just keep going to church anyway, or just be depressed, or you can wake up and say, I guess that means I'm in charge. Well, you just attained godhood at that moment, right? In a way, you maybe don't have all the powers, but you've just attained godhood in that moment. Zen does the same thing. A lot of people have a mistaken understanding. I think one of the things that I'm meant to do here in the occult, I think one of the reasons why I've been pulled in, why the demons were throwing bricks through my window and saying, come back to this, is because they saw what I had achieved in Zen. They saw, and I shouldn't say achieved, I have to use language that you guys will understand, because saying you achieve something in Zen is bullshit. That's not how it works. But they had seen what I had realized. And I think they want me to bring that forward, because if you look at every high-level occultist that works with demons and things like that, almost all of them say that we're all one thing on some version of that statement. We're all source, we're all God, we're all this, we're all deity, we're all, you know what I mean? Everybody says that. And in non-dualism, it's basically the same thing. It's basically the same idea. Most people who do this are non-dualists, and they just don't realize it. They don't realize to the extent that this actually can apply. So a lot of people have a lot of misunderstandings about Zen, that it's a right-hand path, that it's somehow a holy path, that it's somehow like you wouldn't hurt a fly because it's wrong. No. That's not how it works. If you ever talk to a real old Roshi in Japan, a real Zen monk, a real one, not the ones you see on TV, not the cutesy ones that they show everywhere, the real one, if you tell him, I don't want to kill that fly because it's wrong, he's going to say, why is it wrong? A spider's going to kill that fly. Something else is going to... You're going to have your whole idea of morality, your whole idea of good and evil. All of these things are going to get just tossed on their ass. They're just going to get destroyed. And you're going to be left with this question, because they're going to put it to you in ways you can't dispute it. There is no disputing some of the things that they're going to say to you, because these are fundamental truths about reality. You're going to sit there and your mind's going to be blown, especially if you're coming at it from a right-hand path perspective, where you believe that everything has to have a meaning and everything has to have a God behind it. You're going to be tossed on your ass, because you're going to be shown how stupid that is. Why do you need a God? Why do you need answers? Why does everything have to have a meaning? Is it meaning something you create for yourself? Is it meaning something that just like anything else in your life, isn't it something that you create out of your experience? So you can spend a lot of time in the left-hand path doing very Zen things and not know it. And I found that startling. When I started to get back in the occult, I left the occult because all I saw was the evil in it. All I saw was what I was doing with it that I didn't like, that I wasn't happy with, that I said, I'm hurting people. And that made me feel guilty, because I was raised as a Christian, and I thought that's wrong to do. As I became Zen, I realized that that's not necessarily how this works. I felt guilty because I wasn't being honest with myself. I was not being true to myself. I was playing some game where I'm not a bad guy. Nobody's a bad guy. Nobody's a good guy. Nobody's a bad guy. And I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm hoping through the rambling you kind of get an idea of what I'm going for, which is a lot of this stuff that we do. You have to ask yourself, why are you casting a spell? What are you doing when you're casting a spell? Why? Not what, why? Why are you doing that? If you are the source of the power that makes the spell work, right? That's kind of the common consensus, that you're the reason the spell works at all. Why do you need to go through all those steps? Why do you need to cast a circle? Why do you need to draw a sigil? Why do you have to do any of that? And I'm not saying you don't have to. I'm saying why. And then why do you want to? So in other words, if you're a non-dualist like me, every action is already happening for, I don't want to say a reason, but it's already happening the way it's supposed to happen. So if tomorrow I get run over by a bus and I die, that's not a bad thing. That's what's supposed to happen. If I win $1 million, that's what's supposed to happen. If I am a rapist, I'm supposed to be a rapist. If I get raped, and I'm going to get flagged for this probably, but I'm supposed to have these things happen. This is what is happening. This is what is the Tao. This is what's supposed to be. And that applies to magic as well. If I am casting a sigil, if I am summoning a demon, this is already, I don't want to say preordained, because I don't believe destiny works like that, but this is already what's going to be. Okay, so in a way, the act of casting the spell is superficial. It is a celebration. It's an art form. It's a thing we do to express what's already happening in reality. So when you're working magic, a lot of times I tell people, if you're working magic like it's a mechanical vending machine where you're going to put in energy and you're going to get back a result by pulling the lever, you'll get results. I'm not saying you won't, but that's not really what's happening. It's more synchronistic than that. You are doing a magic spell and a result is happening, but they're not necessarily happening because of each other. You could almost say that you're performing the magic spell because the result is already happening. You know what I mean? It's already taking place. Um, I've said just like I think S. Ben Kane and some other people have talked about how you'll make, what is it, the magical phone call or something like that, where you do a spell where you're trying to get somebody to contact you, and right in the middle of it you'll get a text from them, or just before you do it you'll get a text from them, and you're like, oh, I was about to do a spell to get an answer from them. Or I think it was they'll do the spell and the letter will arrive in the mail the next day, but there's no way that they could have written that letter after you did the spell. They had to write the letter before you did the spell in order for the letter to arrive.
Yeah, that
So,
opens up an area of magical deja vu.
yes,
But
and
let's
synchronicity.
let's go back just a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I ramble when I talk.
Oh, I know that, brother. But dude, I love hearing it. Sometimes it's honestly like thoughts I've had and stuff. So it's always good to hear others say it too. Concerning why.
Hmm.
Now, this coming from a practitioner's point of view versus your point of view. Sometimes you have a headache. Sometimes just you think of any freaking reason that you're just not all at one with who and what you are. Okay, with your core self, with your power. Uh, it allows you to focus, like when you're drawing the sigils. It allows you to do all these things, and it's also a great training tools for others learning to develop said magic muscle. Uh, but then let's go just a little bit further than that. Way back in the day, concerning morality,
Hmm.
way back in the day, I used to feel sorry for people that all this bad stuff happened to. All the Now I've had a lot of bad stuff happen to me. I didn't feel sorry for myself because I. It's like it would just happen. It made me the person sitting here in front of this screen. It made me who and what I am, and I wouldn't change a thing. You know what I'm saying? These powers, these forces, whether you're calling it the force that you are, before it ever took flesh, already fucking knew what it needed to happen to mold the perfect container.
Hmm.
And that's what it did. And so I have nothing like that. So, like, I understand, what you were talking about. This is more or less for the audience so that you understand he's not saying he's a rapist or anything like that. The point is that bad shit happens to you.
Hmm.
And there's bad shit that you do to others, and you're like, oh my God, why'd I do that? Like you talking about, the way you used to be. Here's the outside the box looking at it, sitting there saying, because some of it could have been everything from you being from the city and just, the area, and you have to be tougher where you live. It's just the way it is. I've lived up north. I know how it is up there.
And I'm in a nice area.
Dude,
We
oh
fought all
man,
the time.
you better have thick skin in the city, man. But anyway, but beyond all that, beyond the fact that you had to be tougher and all this other stuff, you needed to experience firsthand wielding that kind of power and ability. Okay? So that was experience one. Experience two, and this is the part that is so hard for people to chew on or swallow. Sometimes we have to be the devil. Sometimes we have to be the bad guy. Sometimes we have to be the villain. And yes, later on we can go feeling bad about it. But there was a reason why that part came out and why that part happened. Because maybe some of the people that you worked with or that you were this way by, maybe it taught them to have thicker skin. Maybe it taught them something. Maybe they had an experience and that experience made them grow. And so we can't put ourselves down. All we can do is sit there and say, yeah, I was a bit of an asshole and I loved fighting 10 people versus just myself. I was that fucking mean. And just the more the merrier. I was like, fuck yes,
I
glorious.
think there's still a skinhead running around with my boot print on his neck, but whatever.
I wore in the long body. This body was just ill with the hip not fully forming, but you don't understand. I made it do what I wanted it to do. I did not allow my body to tell me yes or no. It's like why you and I have had the conversation about, bloodletting. It's like, I'm like, gash it wide open, let it just pour. No, we've had this conversation. And there are a lot of people who don't understand that, who don't know what that is, who thinks that maybe we're just into pain and all this other stuff. There is
Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt that bad.
there was a school of thought from Crowley that I really enjoyed. Now, I know everybody talks a lot of stuff about Crowley one way or another, and I'm not kissing his ass. Man was intelligent as shit, but he was
When
also
somebody's right, they're right. I mean, I don't have any, like, I don't play that game where I won't quote someone because I don't like them or something. If someone says something that's right, I'll quote them. If it's right, it's right. So
I mean,
go ahead.
he was a lot of things, and I'm not going to get on that. But one of the things that he talked about was that everything in your life must be mastered. Your mind must be mastered. Your emotions must be mastered. Your body, check this, your body must be mastered. So when I can go and I can cut myself, I'm not sitting there going, how deep, how deep. No, I'm doing it like this. But that's from years
Yeah.
of me mastering my own body and saying no. And that is the difference. And sometimes we're seen as intense individuals. Sometimes we're seen as scary because we have that. But if you were to notice, if you were to walk into our home, you'd be like an invited guest. Red carpet basically laid out, and
A
people
lot
don't.
of the times, people who are in touch with their dark side are the sweetest, most compassionate people in the world because they're in touch with their dark side. I like to put it like that because I'll kill you. Not you personally because I like you, but I'll kill you without hesitation, okay?
Thank you. I like living.
I will. I don't. I have no. It won't even. I probably won't even lose sleep that night, except I'll be celebrating with a keg of ale or something. But at the same time, I'll take a bullet for you if I like you. And at the same time, even if I don't like you, if you're an innocent person walking down the street, and I see you walking down the street, and I have this moment of, like you said, the little old lady, I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm going to save him because I'm a good person. I'm going to do it because it's making me feel good. I'm going to go right there and save you. Like I said, I was a bouncer. I did security. I was the guy who jumped in front of problems. It's partially because I like beating the crap out of people, but it was also just because it made me feel good to be that guy who was like, yeah, like I'm on top. I just took out the bad guy. Haha, what? I like being that guy.
What? I like that.
What? I'm also the type who's going to run across the street and save the dog from getting hit by the car. I'm also the type of person who's going to, So if you read my blog, I come off as like an asshole. I come off as like a cocky asshole who hates life. Nah, man, that's not what I'm about. I'm just in tune with that part of myself.
Yeah.
I say it like that's why I write on the blog. It's for entertainment purposes because some of what I'm putting there is an act. It's an act because it makes me feel good to be this way, and it is how I am. I'm not like it's not like I'm making it up, but just like anything we're doing, it's an act. I do want to touch on two things you mentioned before, at least one thing. When we're saying things happening to us, bad things happen to us. I suffered this. This happened to me. In Zen, in this foundation that I have, we say that as a euphemism, not a euphemism, as a colloquialism. We say this because that's what people say, but we don't really hold that. I don't believe that. Things don't happen to me. Things happen, but there's no one for it to happen to. Everyone is the same thing. So in other words, if there's no individualization, if there's no difference between you and I, essentially, other than the fact that we're like two hands looking at each other, even though they're the same entity, I can't say that you did something to me, right? Because you weren't there to do it to me, and there was no me for it to be done to. Yeah. It's a thing that is done. To put it another way, there's a Zen saying that goes, there is enlightenment, but no one to be enlightened. And that's a very deep statement that on the surface makes one kind of sense, and if the more you look at it, it makes a different kind of sense the further down you go. So when I encounter someone who says, like, a lot of times people who practice magic, why are they doing it? Because their life sucks, or because they're having difficulty. In almost every case that I've encountered someone who does magic, very rarely are they a rich millionaire with nothing to worry about. In almost every case, I can't think of a single exception, in fact, This is a person who comes from a troubled childhood, or they had a bad experience, or they're always having nightmares, or whatever it is. There's something that they're struggling to deal with, and that mundane, normal things aren't helping them with. And they're reaching out for power and for authority and for ability and for something to give them. And again, coming from experience, this is where I think the shadows came into me, because they said, "Hey, we can give you that for nothing. Just let us feed off of your friends, and we'll do what you want." Well, this is what happens. People who are powerless or who have a problem, I come off as a big tough guy, and I am, but that also means that in my everyday life, you know, even though I have an IQ of 142, I failed out of school almost because I just couldn't pay attention. I hated it. I hated every minute of it. And my family life sucked. My home life sucked. I had no center of strength to draw on besides my ability to defend myself. There was nothing that I had that I could say, this is my rock. This is my foundation. Until I started opening myself fully to the dark forces that were out there. And I said, I don't care if you're a devil or a god, I'm not going to sell you my soul because fuck you. That doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. But as a kid, I didn't know that. So I was saying, I'm never going to sell you my soul, but, I'll help you out. What do you want?
Yeah.
I was willing to make that arrangement. And if people are in a good place, if people are doing well, if they're fearful, they don't open themselves to that side of reality. And a lot of people that get into magic, into the occult, start off with either a victim attitude, that is to say, things are happening to me and I need to fight back, and I'll get back to that because it's a key statement, or they are people that they want more, they're greedy, they want something they can't have, okay? And what I find is the ones who are the victims and decided to fight back, to take power into their own hands, are the ones who get success. The ones who take that step and say, I'm not going to be kicked around anymore, they're the ones who find power. The ones who just want more greedy stuff, the ones who say, I want money, I want sex, I want this, I want that,
They always stay in that level of need.
they never go higher than that, right? And usually they try it and it doesn't work and they go away. That's why I often laugh. People will say, could you give me a magic spell to give me money? And I'll say, I could, and let's assume it works. It's not going to work for you because it's not your magic, it's my magic. So you got to learn how to. I'm not just going to give you a spell to become a rich millionaire. I don't think I could because it's not my wheelhouse. I don't care about money. Money is like, do I have enough to buy what I want? Good, leave me alone. It's not my pursuit in life. I want to just make sure I'm comfortable.
That's the one thing you and I agree on right there.
Right. Do I want more now? Yes. I'd like to have enough now where I can make a little money doing some occult stuff. Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
But I'm not looking to be, driving a Maserati around with a wizard staff out the trunk. You know what I mean? I'm looking to be a quiet, peaceful life where I sell some books, and I want my richness to be in interaction with people that I care about, with the occult community and things like that. So, but what I had to do was stop being a victim. That was number one, was say, I did a spell with Vine. I posted it on my blog, how you can break binding. Like if someone puts a binding on you, it's not always going to be a spell that's done to you. Sometimes it's just going to be the world's just beating you down and you just can't get out of it. However you're bound, this act of breaking those binds yourself is really important. You have to become, not just say, I'm the master. You have to really just say, fuck you. I'm doing it my goddamn way. Fuck you. I'm doing it. Not the demons, not the magic. I'm doing it. Me. When you can start owning it and just saying, this is my power, mine, it starts to work better. Okay? And you do need a little bit of arrogance and a little bit of ego. You need to be able to say, my way's better than your way, even though you might know more than me. My way's better than your way. Not because it's better than their way, but it's better for you.
Yeah.
So you have to own what you're doing. You have to be in control of it. You have to be able to, when something's threatening you, because demons and gods and shadows, what's the theme we keep saying? They feed on your fear. I'm not saying demons do, but things feed on your weakness. They'll work against you with your weakness. A demon respects a person who, they don't mind if you ask them for things, right? We all know that. You can ask a demon to do whatever you want, and a lot of times they'll do it for you. But they'd much rather you say, could you show me how to do it?
Yeah.
They'd much rather you say, show me how to be strong like you. They don't want a servant. They don't want a slave. They don't want your soul. They want you to be as powerful a companion to them as you
They
think
are
of them
you.
to you, right? They want you to have the power because they want to call on you. And they do. I've written a blog post about that. What do demons ask from you? And it could be something silly. It could be something silly like, on this day at this time, put a rock on this fence post. What the fuck do they need that for? But it's true. And this is how chaos works in chaos magic. You have to realize you're putting a rock on that fence post because it's going to cause something somewhere in the domino effect of life that's going to get some other spell to work for you or someone else. It's all part of this great big chain of events. So you have to own that power. You have to own the power. And coming from the Zen perspective again, I say Zen a lot, but it's not really Zen. It's just kind of Taoist. You have to own the fact that you are the Tao, that you are everything at all times. You have to own the fact, and a lot of people will say, I want my way, right? Well, what is your way? This is why I say, I want to go back to that thing, why, just really quick. Why are you casting the spell? Why are you doing it in the first place? Why? What is the source of that? And you have to recognize that you are the source of that. You are the source of that reason. The Tao is going to be like a flow of causality, you could say. And people will say, well, what does that mean about free will? Well, you are that causality. You are that free will. You can't have free will because there's nothing to be freed from. You are all will everywhere all the time. You're all of it. You just don't realize it because the person talking is the ego. The person that's examining it is the ego. Your ego is your thoughts about your thoughts. And Crowley spoke about true will a lot. Okay. He spoke about your true will. And he was really talking about Tao. I just don't think he realized it. He was saying that magic works by following your true will. When does magic work best? You have to put all of your intent into it. You have to have all your true will associated with it.
Yeah, but the rest of it has to be lined up.
Correct. It all has to be in line. And so then you have someone like Alan Watts, who is like my go-to spiritual advisor in the universe for everything. He's like my Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's just like my favorite ghost in the world. And he is dead, unfortunately, but that doesn't really matter because his wisdom is out there in YouTube form. He would say, what are you trying to get in accord with? When I say you need to get in accord with your true will for magic to work, he would say, well, what are you trying to get in accord with? Because the joke here is you're already that. You're already your true will. So when someone says, like, I need to meditate and figure out what my true will is, or I need to figure out what I really want, or, you're already doing what you want. That's not the problem. You know what I mean? If you aren't rich, it's not that richness isn't happening to you. It's because somewhere in that great Tao that is you're not supposed to be rich for some reason. Like you said, maybe you need to overcome a hardship so that you can grow. Maybe you need to learn how to make that money the right way. You have to be in line with it. But people put the cart before the horse a lot of the times. They're expecting to cast a spell and get money, but maybe the spell that you should be casting is to not need money. Maybe like they often say when you cast a spell to hurt somebody, to kill somebody, right? It doesn't always kill somebody, although sometimes it does. But it doesn't always kill somebody, right? It'll just remove them from your life somehow. It will maybe, you'll cast a spell and say, I hate this coworker. I hate him so much. Wish he was dead. And you'll cast a spell and you'll put everything into it. And it worked. Like you and I both know when you cast a spell and it works, it's going to work. When you feel that, that emptying, right? And you'll cast it, and something's going to happen, and then you let it go. You can't think about it anymore. You can't focus on it. Don't even worry about whether it's going to happen or not. And you'll be sitting there.
Check up on
it. Just check up on it now and then, but don't watch the pot. Let it go. Yeah. And one day you'll be at work, and you'll be like, there's two kinds of people. The person will be sitting at work and go, why isn't he dying? And then the other person who goes, look at that. He's clearing out his desk. He got fired. Now, to be honest with you, if he got fired, you got the result. You know what I mean? That's what you needed. You're always going to get what your truest will is, whether you ask for it or not. So this is why some people will cast a spell and it doesn't work, though they think it doesn't work. But an outsider will say, yeah, but you kind of got what you wanted. And I'm going to say this because you and I met because you were doing the Necronomicon. And that's how I started, okay? I started dabbling with the Necronomicon. And you know better than anybody that it's a path working that takes you from being a whatever to being an enlightened individual who understands, right? And you can walk these gates intentionally. You can go, I'm walking this gate, this gate, this gate, this gate, and get to the end, and right? You've now arrived. Well, if you truly begin that path working, and those entities want you to walk that path, you're going to walk that path, whether you go through it
one way
intentionally
or
or not.
another.
Which is what I think kind of happened to me. Because I was dabbling, and they're like, we're going to show him. We're going to scare the shit out of him. We're going to put him in his place. We're going to make him afraid. And through that fear, you're going to learn it's real. You know, what is more visceral and real than fear when it happens? You know, when somebody says, I'm going to threaten to kill you, you go, whatever. When the gun's at your head and you're feeling that, it's real now.
Yeah.
When someone says magic is real, and you go, yeah, right. You know, if you don't believe in it, yeah, right, whatever. But then now you've got a shadow sitting on your chest sucking the life out of you, right? Now, what's more powerful an experience, you know, or even a good thing? You know, fear is a very powerful truth teller. You know, fear can be very deceptive, but it can burn away deception too, because you can be so afraid that you become like, oh, that's what I really care about. You know, that's what really matters to me. You know, so I think that I ended up going through this process, whether it was the Necronomicon or just the entities that are around that saw that I was trying to do that. Because I was a dumb kid. I wasn't like you, who was like, you know, had my brain put together when I started working with these things a little bit. I was just like,
Wow,
flop, you know. Well, you know what I'm saying.
my shit together.
Well, compared to how I was, I mean, I was sitting there just like, let's see if this works. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
it was bad, man. It was you know, when someone says don't dabble in magic, I did exactly every single thing they said don't do. I did it. I'm living proof of what can happen to you.
No, I think all of us as practitioners, like even in the beginning, like I was reading a Life of Sleep Vidal who was saying that, you know, you shouldn't become a practitioner or be into the mystical arts or any of this other stuff till you're 40. I remember sitting there at 20 reading that going, let's see about that.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like God made the earth and the heavens and everything in 7 days. I'm the motherfucker. Let's see if we can do it in one.
One.
I was an egotistical,
Yes.
but it takes
But you
that.
have to be.
You have to be that kind of person. You know, how else do we learn new shit? You know,
You have to
but
have the cojones or whatever to
no.
say
You gotta
you
have
have
you have to have the the cojones for this. Sorry, I got twisted. Uh, but we are coming up close to the time I need to be winding this down some. Thorne, it was absolutely amazing having you here, man. Certainly appreciate your
Yep.
input, and would like to later on do videos with you if you're open to that. You
Oh, I'd
know,
appreciate coming
might be a
back.
few months, might be half a year. I'm just now getting this series going.
I can't come back for about a month anyway because of my work schedule. So next month in January, if you're ready to go again, I will apologize. I ramble a lot. I am much more succinct in my writing. When I talk, I go off on every tangent that comes to my mind. So
No,
I
I'm
apologize if I didn't make a lot of sense to some people.
well, but no, I'll have surgery either December or January, something like that. So whenever this all rolls around, as I know for a matter of fact, the universe puts us in the right place at the right time. It's just up to our individual self to just do it. So,
That's right.
uh, but is there anything you would like to say to the audience, man?
Just check out my blog, check out my YouTube, come to my Facebook page and friend me if you're interested in the occult. I swear to God, I'm a lot more interesting when you read my writing.
Well, you're a lot more interesting in general, man. That's like
That's
you're
how much
like
more awesome.
a thimble of water versus your mug over there. You're the mug. But with that being said and done, I wish each and every single one of you peace, blessings, and power till next time.
See you later, brother.